everyone, it's Adrienne Leah. This is going to be decks that I want to mainly sell, but I'll also trade too. I have a couple, and I do have another pile of decks that I wanted to sell or trade, but they aren't with me right now. They're actually in the house in Florida right now, so I'll show those in another video. But for this one, I do have a good amount. I also have some honorable mentions of the ones that I would consider trading or selling, but they're not at the top of my list to do that. So the first one is the first edition of the Transparent Tarot. I used to use this deck a lot, but I don't really use the deck anymore. I did clean the cards because they did, when you first get them, especially with the first edition, they had a film residue on it because it's like a plastic material, and I heard that there's improvements for the newer one, but that one is one that I did enjoy using. And then the other one is my second copy of the Japanese Myth Tarot, which is unopened, and I did do a couple of videos on my interpretations of that, so you could look at those cards in those videos. But I would consider it. I like having the second copy because it's not as readily available as other decks, so I didn't include it in here. I also have to go along with the Dreams of Gaia that I have in this list of trading, so I'll show the Dreams of Gaia in here. I also have the Messenger Oracle because I figured that I would maybe pair them together or move on both of them, because I do enjoy how they read. It's just not my favorite artwork on some of the cards. It doesn't deter from the interpretations, but I think it's just a preference of mine. So it comes in this box, and this isn't the first one that came out, but it was the one after that. So it comes with the book, and it has the gilding on here. Some of the images, especially the court cards, I really love. So if it doesn't get moved on, I'm okay with that too. But I know I stick to my main decks, and it can be I have to get into the habit of using other decks, but I do like the guidebook, and there is a bit of a twist. There's some extra cards, and some of the cards are not as close to the meanings of the cards than others. So there's definitely the artist's interpretation in here too. But I do like that in decks. So overall, I like the artwork in here. So another deck that I wanted to trade is the Marshmallow Marseille. This is a self-published deck from Wandering Oracle, and I do love the images for this Tarot de Marseille, but it's mainly the backings that give a strange texture for me when I feel the cards, because some of them you can feel and kind of see an outline on the other side. I don't mind seeing it on the other side, but the texture isn't my favorite. So the artwork is so nice that I kept it for a long time because I do have this as one of my top Tarot de Marseille decks, but I'm hoping that maybe in the future I can find one that I will work with. And I love the color palette on this one too. So this is a small deck. It actually looks like it's poker sized. And since I'm showing the comparison for this deck, I have the regular sized version of the Shadowscapes Tarot. It isn't edged that well, but I do love the warmth of it. I just don't use it because I have the Czech edition, which is larger, and even though it doesn't have the warmth, I always use that one because the images are bigger. So this is one of the main decks that I use for Fae energy. It has like a solemn warmth to it. So some of the edging got onto the card. So this could be maybe another deck to put in with another deck if there's one that you want. Then if the edging is the silver, and overall I do love using the Shadowscapes Tarot, just the larger one. So I'll show an oracle next. The oracle that I have in this Sailor Trade is the Fairy Tale Oracle. And I love the color palette for this. I just use one Lucy Cavendish artwork deck, which is the Beautiful Creatures Tarot, the first edition. So as much as I love the imagery and the color palette, I think that I really dedicated most of my energy to that one, that I'm just not reaching for this one. It does have a nice energy when you're reading it. These are the backs. And the pictures are inspired by stories, which you'll get in the guidebook. There's a good amount of it in here. So I don't know a lot of the stories in here. It wasn't a deck that I was investing in, so I figured that I would move it on too. And again, nothing is working with them. Nothing is wrong with the decks. I'm just not using them enough. So the next one is the Vanessa Tarot in a tin. So I use this when I was younger, but I feel like I've outgrown the energy for it. Not saying it's too much of a younger deck, but overall I don't really connect to childlike decks as much. And going back to the Beautiful Creatures Tarot, I think that it has a darker fae energy to it, or not as light, not so much darker. So this is a really fun deck, and it does give in-your-face readings too, and you could see that there's an influence of TV shows in here. So it's a nice size, and I do like the cardstock for it. It's really nice to use. So it says, with humor, glamour, and an attitude of adventure, the daring darlings of Vanessa Tarot share all their special tarot secrets. The next one is one that I did love and that I moved on. I sold it a couple years ago, and then I wanted it again because I remember that I loved reading with it, but I feel like I moved it on for a reason to where I'm not using it. But I made an interesting bag. I say interesting because I used variegated yarn for it, and there's a lot of knots in here because when I was doing a project the first time, or when I was first balling up the hank, the type of yarn form that it comes in, it kept getting tangled, so I kept just tying stuff together. So it's the inside is interesting, but the outside is more snake-like because I didn't do it exactly like a standard cable knit. I didn't rotate the needle, so it kind of reminds me of a snake, and I put the endings on here for you to tie it. I got this from an amazing friend of mine, and it's the Mythic Tarot. I just feel bad that I'm holding on to it, and I know I'm not going to use it. I also don't work a lot with, oh, this one's the older edition too. So it has, I like the imagery of this one more than the newer one. But I mainly work with the Morgan and the Native American guides, so I don't use this deck a lot. Or the Morgan with the Celtic practices. And I also have the book and the workbook with this one. So I have a couple more. So I also have books that I wanted to move on because I left books here for before I moved to Florida, and then when I came back to Florida, I saw the books again that I left, and I'm like, because For those who have been watching me for a couple of years, even I think I had it on my old channel too. This is my second channel, but what did I do? I got a bunch of books off of a witch that was selling like 50 or 75 books because she added more books when I got there because she was just downsizing. So I kept majority of them, but there are a couple that I'm not using. So those are the ones where most of them came from. But I got it at such a good price. So I might just hold on to them for now because I don't think I'll be shipping the books at the moment. So the next ones, I have one more tarot deck and the rest are oracle. So the next one is the Flowers of the Night Oracle, and I love the backs of the cards. But maybe because I want more from the guidebook, it's not giving me as much or the information that I wanted to have in the guidebook. Oh, and I finished college, by the way. It might just be me being a snob about it, because I'm very picky about my herbal decks. The main one that I'm using right now, I think it's the only one that I'm using, is the Druid Plant Oracle, and even that is one that I'm okay with the guidebook. It has decent information, but I think it's not as organized, but I like reading it. So I also did have the 1990s Herbal Tarot. But there was a story with that one. I did love how it reads, but I typically don't use Rider-Waite-Smith clones. But if I'm recommending either the newer Herbal Tarot or the older one, the older one has a warmth to it that the newer one doesn't, especially with like the yellows. The newer one is a lot brighter than the older one. So I did love the book because Michael Tierra, he's a known herbalist even in the herbal community, and he wrote a couple of books outside of, his Herbal Tarot. So I also have the Sedona deck, which I was wondering if I was going to move on or not, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to move on. Just because the timing that it came into my life, I try not to put that association with it, but I think I have a lot of Native American influence decks, but I don't think I need to hold on to this one, mainly because of the different monuments or the places that is associated with it. That that I can read it, but there's a disconnect to it. Some of the cards I really love, and I love the cardstock. It's the smooth cardstock. I say buttery. Some people say petal cardstock. So it is a sweet deck. And I think maybe if I wasn't so focused on my other Native American decks, not to say that I won't find one that I really love in the future, but I don't put a lot of time with this one, into this one. So, for the decks for specifically trading, I'm also interested in Lenormand decks too, mainly the self-published ones, because I only found one mass-produced Lenormand deck that I enjoyed. Not saying I don't like the other ones, but it's not, they weren't as much of my style. So the tarot deck that I have is the Chrysalis Tarot, and this one has the guidebook with it. And I did a quick bag to go with it. So it's interesting. I love the backings. And I love a lot of the cards, but then it's mainly the court cards that I'm not that into. So and also the mirror suit, which is the cup suit. I'm not that into mirrors like that. But it is a super beautiful deck, and I'm picky about my court cards, but seeing this video, you guys might think I'm picky about everything. It has a nice cardstock too, so it's also interesting because a couple times I slept with this deck next to me, and it puts you in a interesting, euphoric, like, lively, dreamlike state that's unique to that deck, because I don't usually get that with my decks. So the last one that I have with me up here is the Kuan Yin Oracle. I just don't connect to certain goddesses. I love the artwork in here. It's one of my favorite artwork in an oracle deck. But especially now, my practice is mainly working with the Morrigan and my Native American guides. Things may change in the future, but the artwork in here is amazing. I especially love the yaks and just the attention to what they're wearing and the environment that she's in. I love the environment because I love the cold weather. And I know that the person went to art school for this, well, not for this specific deck, but in general. So the person has more of traditional experience based off of the area of this deck, but it's such a amazing deck to look at. That I would hold on to it, but I know that I think it's better to move it on. So those were all my decks for this video, and then I had the honorable mentions of ones that if you guys are interested, I could do something with them too. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll probably be in another setting in the next video or two because I'll get the condo this weekend. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in another video.